Good evening, everybody. I would like to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. That's the reason I'm getting both shows done tonight, because I will definitely not be streaming tomorrow unless I just happen to stream while I'm playing NASCAR 25 like I did today. For those of you who watched that, I hope you enjoyed it. I don't know why the sound wasn't working. I'll try and get that fixed. And for some odd reason, I can't get StreamYard to link on YouTube for Trackstorm Racing, my other channel where I like to do that stuff. I've got some pre-recorded videos over there that I'm probably going to upload, but I don't know why that wasn't working. I'll try and work on that next time that I play, which will probably be tonight after Damage Report. Just to be perfectly honest, I think I'm just going to sit here and play NASCAR 25 until the sun comes up, because I don't have anything to do tomorrow. My girlfriend's going to do all the cooking, and that's probably the best idea because she's much better at it than I am. So I assume there's not going to be a whole lot of people in the chat and everything. That's totally fine. I know a lot of people are going to the game tonight. A lot of y'all are probably already there. Let's get to some of the comments here before we get into some stuff. Magneto Kane reposted the stream. Thank you very much, my good friend. Happy Thanksgiving, J-Dub. Happy Thanksgiving to you, too. Sorry the Panthers were so bad last night. First and goal, and Bryce Young, he had a clear path to walk the damn ball into the end zone, and he threw it, and it got intercepted, and I was just kind of like, well, that's how this game's going to go. Skylark, what's up, buddy? Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. And also on this channel, I will be strictly referring to December 25th and that time frame around it as Merry Christmas. Just so everyone knows. Nothing against anybody, but that's what I do. All right, let's go ahead and get into this here. All right, typical don't sue me slide. All right, new opening slide. I hope you guys like it. I've been working on this format, so... All right, Hurricanes versus Rangers. Today is the 26th of November. They will be playing at Lenovo Center. This is the second of a 4-game season series with the Rangers. Carolina took the first outing of this series 3-0 in New York on the 4th of November. Overall records, Carolina is 14-6-2. The Rangers are 11-11-2. Now, here's where we have to look at that in a very, very kind of strange light. Carolina 6-2-1 at home. To be expected. A team like Carolina, who makes the most of favorable matchups, is going to win more at home. Even with all the injuries, that's been pretty helpful, but very good record at home. If they were fully healthy, it could be a little bit better. For all the struggles the Rangers have had, the vast majority of them have been at home for the Rangers. On the road, they are 9-4-1, so that's something that I definitely think could be a factor tonight in terms of how hard the Rangers would be to beat. They've been pretty good on the road, so let's take that into account. If the Canes have a little bit of a rough night tonight, the Rangers have their struggles, but they're not having them in other people's barns right now. All right, so going to the big picture here. Goals for, Carolina has 78, the Rangers have 65. Goals against, Carolina has 65 against, the Rangers have 52 against. Goal different, or excuse me, that should be flipped the other way around, actually. I don't know why that says that. Anyway, goal differential, plus 13 for the Canes, minus 2 for the Rangers. Goals for per game, Carolina took a little bit of a dip from their last game. They are now 3.50 versus the Rangers, who have 2.50 goals per game. Goals against per game, 2.63 for Carolina, a little uncharacteristically high right now because of the injuries. I'm expecting that to get fixed once you start getting guys back in the lineup, especially Slavin. 2.91 for the Rangers. Power play percentage, Carolina actually improved a little bit on this. They were 12% last time. They were up to 14.3. That still needs to go up about 10 points before anybody takes it serious. The Rangers are sitting right at about 20%, a little uncharacteristically low for them. Penalty kill percentage, again, uncharacteristic for Carolina. I'm going to call it injuries for right now, 78.6 versus 79.7 for the Rangers. Face-off percentage, Carolina has finally gotten back above the 50% mark. They are now at 53.6 versus 50.1 for the Rangers. Going over and looking at the lines, not much different for Carolina, except for the fact that it looks like Jordan Stahl will be out. Kotkaniemi skated as the extra today. He's still wearing a yellow sweater. Svechnikov, Aho, Jarvis, Ehlers, Stankoven, and Blake. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Those two lines are playing fine. I know that they kind of struggled last game, particularly the first line. The second line was actually one of the only things that I could say was an absolute disaster in the game against Buffalo. Jankowski slots in where where Jordan Stahl normally is, and he will be with Jordan Martinook and William Carrier. And then for the fourth line, Justin Robidas, who was recently recalled, will be in the fourth line center spot, centering Hall and Robinson. Miller, Walker for the top pair. I'm expecting a big game out of Keandre Miller tonight. I know that he was fighting with the flu bug a little bit, so hopefully he's totally good to go. Gostisbehere and Chatfield for the second pair, Nikishin and Nystrom for the third. Mike Riley is the extra. Frederick Anderson, Brandon Bussey, For the backup, Anderson will be starting against Igor Shesterkin for the Rangers. Slavin, Kochekov, and Stahl were still absent from the morning skate. Rangers lines: Will Cooley, Mika Zibanejad, Alexis Lafreniere, Artemi Panarin, Trocheck, and Brodzinski for their second line. Don't laugh too hard at that top six. I think Johnny Brodzinski is a much better player than people give him credit for, and his dad on X is really, really fun to follow. Sherry, Laba, Berard for the third line, Edstrom, Carrick, Radish. Where Carolina should have a pretty big net positive over the Rangers is in the bottom six. And then when you go on the defense, even without Slavin, this is pretty even. If Slavin was there, it would be far and away Carolina would have the better defense here. Gavrikov, Fox, that pair is really good. You got to watch out for that pair at least. Gavrikov is an excellent shutdown guy. He complements Fox really well and allows him to open up the offensive side of his game. Susie, Schneider, Vakanainen, and Robinson, you should be able to exploit that bottom four. Those two pairs, the two bottom pairs the Rangers have, the Canes should be able to really make life difficult for them on the forecheck. And again, Igor Shesterkin will be starting. JT Miller and Will Borgen are skating as a extra D pair in non-contact jerseys. As last I saw, we will not be seeing either one of them tonight. So the Rangers are pretty banged up too. So this is one of those games where the Hurricanes can take advantage of the guys that the Rangers have out of the lineups and get a big net positive out of who they have in the lineup despite their own injuries. Skating speed. This is one of those few stretches of time where you'll see the Canes not having the speed that a lot of other teams have. A lot of that's because of the injuries. This is actually a pretty significant difference. Carolina has more 22-mile-per-hour bursts and more 22-mile-per-hour bursts than the Rangers, but it's not a very big difference there. When you're looking at 18 to 20-mile-per-hour bursts, that mid-range acceleration, the Rangers have a significant advantage there. So a very, very fast-paced game would probably favor the Hurricanes. A fast-paced, low-event game, that is, if they can keep it that way. Going over into zone time, Carolina's got a pretty big advantage here, as usual, 46% versus 49.1%. In the offensive zone, neutral zone, 18.1 to 17.1, a little bit even there. Defensive zone, Carolina, for all the injuries and all the struggles they've had back there and looking a little uncharacteristic, they're still well below the NHL average in amount of time spent in the defensive zone at 35.9 when the average is 41.1%. Looking at the Rangers, 49.1 in the offensive zone. They don't need a whole lot of time to hurt you in the offensive zone. They've been a little bit uncharacteristic in the offensive zone lately. They normally score a lot more with a lot less chances. Don't be the team that lets them turn it around tonight because they have a bunch of weapons. They're all dormant right now, but that can change. Neutral zone, 17.1, not a very big difference there when compared to Carolina. Defensive zone, the Rangers are spending a lot of time in their own end, 41%. That's more than enough time for Carolina to make something happen there. Shots on goal, Carolina 741 to 631, and they've got them beat in every single regard here as far as volume shooting. They beat most teams in it, but they've got pretty significant margins once you look past high danger chances. High danger, 184 to 173, pretty close. Mid-range, this is where the gap starts to be really big. 216 to 164, 194 to 148 for the long range or the lower danger chances, lower danger shots. If this is a volume shooting game and Carolina does their best to stifle what chances the Rangers generate on the high danger side of things, Carolina will be good to go in this one. Goals. From all locations, Carolina has 77 versus 60 for the Rangers. High danger, again, the Rangers are better at generating those high danger shots because of the players they have like Panarin and Zibanejad in particular. Mid-range, 30 to 17, pretty significant gap there. Long range, actually pretty close, 8 to 6. Carolina's not scoring as much from the point as normal right now. I'm expecting that to change here in the near future. Shooting percentages, again, Rangers, high danger, a little bit higher. Mid-range, 13.9 to 10.4, so 4.1 and 4.1 at long-range shooting percentages. So when it comes to shooting percentages, pretty close across the board, except in the high-danger aspect, and even then, that one's not that far apart. The mid-range is not far apart, and the long-range is dead even. So this is one of those nights where Carolina, if they can really outchance the Rangers and have a wide gap in outchancing them, they should be good to go there. Looking at the goaltending matchup here, the Rangers, with their struggles, despite that, Igor Shesterkin is still playing pretty well. Frederik Andersen has, in 12 games played, 5 wins, 5 losses, 2 overtime losses, has a 3.07 goals against average and an 881 save percentage. That does have to change. So that's something that's got to get better between the pipes for the Canes across the board. I'm not just talking specifically to Freddie Andersen. The team needs to improve across the board in the goaltending aspect. Tonight would be a good night for Frederick Anderson on an individual basis to be doing that. Igor Shesterkin has played 18 games, 8 wins, 8 losses, 2 overtime losses, 2.50 goals against average. Anything below 3 is good. 2.50 is excellent. And anything above 900 is good for a save percentage. And he's at 909. So if the Rangers lose tonight, it probably won't be because of Shesterkin, unless he just has a bad night. But if you want to get him to have a bad night, get to him early, get in there, make life difficult for him, make him face a high amount of shots, work to the interior of the ice. You can make that happen. Going a little bit further, looking at where they're making their save percentage from, Shesterkin has him beat across the board here, except for long-range save percentages, and even then Shesterkin is close to a 950 in that regard. So, again, volume shooting, great. High danger chances, even better. Out-chancing them, that would be amazing. Shots against, goals against, again, Freddie's not facing as many shots as Shesterkin is, but pretty even in that regard. And then didn't do that slide today. Didn't really have time. So I'm going to take that off there, get to some of the comments. Lackey, what's up, buddy? Happy Thanksgiving, y'all. Happy Thanksgiving, my friend. Oh, where is Morrow? Well, if they're smart, they'll send him to China before it's too late. I mean, I'm not one to just up and pray for the downfall of anybody, but like when he didn't lay that hit on Matthew Tkachuk when he had a perfect opportunity to, I was done with him then. It wasn't even all the other stuff that happened in that game. I would have forgiven everything else if he had finished that hit on Tkachuk, but he just lazily skated by him like he wasn't even there. And I was like, nah, I'm done with him. Being held hostage in Hartford. No, he's holding Hartford hostage, if you ask me. Dylan says, I like Jank with Martinook and Carrier. That fits, and E-Rob is definitely better with, and Robidas is definitely better with Hall and Robinson. Yeah, no, I think that line will be pretty solid. Would really like a shutdown game from Freddie tonight. Yeah, if Freddie can make those timely saves, Carolina will be in good shape. Dylan also asked, what would you think of Kiefer Sherwood becoming a game? I like Kiefer Sherwood. Last I looked, he has 13 goals, 14 goals, something like that in 26 games played. He's physical. That's something that Carolina could really, really use. That being said, Kiefer Sherwood is not my first choice. Now, if we're looking at just go get a rental and add him in the lineup wherever you can fit him and make him work, absolutely. But Carolina's in a position where they can get something a little bit better. I know that he's got a no-trade clause, but Robert Thomas is one of those guys I would absolutely love Carolina to try and go get and then make a third line, if you will, if you want to call it that, between Hall, Stankoven, and Robinson. That's a team that doesn't have a traditional superstar, but that's still a team that can win a Stanley Cup. So that would be my first choice for something like that. If everybody else ahead of Kiefer Sherwood, which there's about 5 or 6 names I can think of off the top of my head, were off the board, then Kiefer Sherwood would not be a bad pickup for this team at all. Scoring ability aside, the fact that he gets the dirty areas, retrieves pucks, and throws hits, and he'll stand up for guys after the whistle and all that type of stuff, Kiefer Sherwood is someone I wouldn't have a problem with at all. So, like he says, 781 on high danger. Yeah, that's a bit concerning. That really is a bit concerning. But what it really comes down to tonight, stop the teams from stop the Rangers from generating a lot of high danger chances, shut down the ones that they do get, and keep the play at the other end of the ice. You know, that's the thing with Carolina. It's a simple but effective formula most of the time for them. If they play their game and play it well tonight, there's no reason that they shouldn't beat the Rangers. I hate using this term, but the last game in Buffalo, I hate this term, but it's applicable in this situation, scheduled loss. And especially when you factor in that the sniffles are going through the room, then that's also something else to be factored in. Freddie has been letting in the first few and then finally getting into the game. Can't do that tonight. No, Carolina cannot play from behind in this game. If they play from behind, they will lose. If they get out ahead of this one really quick, if Carolina can get the first couple of goals and get them early and get in Igor's head, because you can get one of the biggest things you can do to beat Igor Shesterkin is score on him early and get in his head. And that's one of the best things you can do by far. I'm not afraid of that defense. I'm definitely not afraid of that bottom 6 that the Rangers have. If their top 6 comes to life and Igor stands on his head, Carolina loses this game. If Carolina executes their game the way that we know that they can, Carolina wins this game 10 times out of 10. It's going to be one of those nights where it's either a 1 or a 0. I think that this is a game where Carolina, it's more likely that they would beat themselves than the Rangers would beat them, not accounting for injuries and flu and all that type of stuff. But like Rod said, you can't really use that as an excuse. If you let that be an excuse, then everything else can end up being an excuse. So that's basically all that there is for this one. This is a pretty simple game for Carolina to be able to come out and win. I really genuinely believe that. So Lackey says that was definitely apparent in Buffalo making critical timely stops, but you could tell that the Sabres were going to run away with it. Yeah, that game, like I said, that was a scheduled loss. I was working on an essay that day, and I only kind of half paid attention to that game. But like when Aho went to, and I finally saw the clip of that, when Aho went to lay that half-hearted hit on Beck Mallenstein, I'm going to say that was uncharacteristic from Aho, and I think that was more of he wasn't feeling good, and you could tell the entire team was one or two steps off. I'm not expecting him to have another game like that unless he just doesn't feel good again yet. Like, there were a lot of people giving him shit for that, and I don't think that's fair. Especially, it's like, I mean, in my younger and much, much, much more stupid days, I played hockey with double pneumonia one time. That was a bad idea. I was coughing up blood. Like, I was stupid for that. I shouldn't have done that. I don't get paid to play, but I was like 23, 24 years old, and I thought I was going to live forever, and I wouldn't do something like that now. And these guys, they play through really bad stuff all the time. I hope to Christ they don't have any of them play through double pneumonia, because, there was someone in the Stanley Cup Finals way back in the day that played for Montreal. I can't remember his name. He died from playing with the flu. I can't remember his name, but like, stuff like that doesn't need to be happening nowadays, especially not this early in the season. It's not irrational for them to fly out of a relatively warm climate like North Carolina and then go to all the cold places that they've been recently, and a bunch of guys get sick. Drastic temperature changes like that will get you sick. So, and I know that from living in Virginia, there were times where I experienced 4 and 5 seasons in one day. There was one day I remember specifically, I woke up, it was freezing cold. It snowed at 11 o'clock, or I'm sorry, it snowed at about 7 in the morning for an hour. It rained from about 10 o'clock until noon. And then I was wearing shorts when I went to walk Frank at 5 p.m. So yeah, that's a factor. Dylan says, end of the road trip afternoon game, we never stood a chance. No, yeah, you're familiar with the lore, Dylan. Matinee game, and it was a milestone game for Svechnikov because he played his 500th game, I believe it was that night, or whatever it was. Like, that was bound to just not be a good day. The Elma Tador 25. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. Saul and KK going down shows our lack of center depth. If we lost Aho, we would actually be in shambles. We are already behind on the dot. Yeah, the center depth is a little bit of a concern tonight. Luckily, we have the 2 top 6 guys, which are Aho and Stankoven. Jankowski is he is depth. Like, that's what he is. It's like, I know that he had that insanity run last year where he went 7 for 7 on shooting percentage for a little bit. That's the exception, not the rule, not just with him, but like literally anybody in this league. Connor McDavid can't do that and sustain it. And I think people overvalued Jankowski a little bit because of that. But Jankowski is a 13th forward. He's a good one. That's what he's for. He'll fill in that role just fine. And Robidoux, this is exactly what he's for, being called up and being used in that 4th line center role. Small guy, but okay, not very tall, but he's built like a refrigerator. He's when he goes in the corner 9 times out of 10, he comes up with the puck. So, if Nadeau had the strength that Robidoux had, he would be able to be called up. So Dylan says Jank is great on the dot. Yeah, he is. He's just not someone you want in the lineup all the time. Now, if you were to sacrifice somebody else to make the team better in other ways and Jankowski was in the lineup full time, that would be one thing. But like, as it stands right now, he's a 13th forward, and no one should expect him to be anything other than that. So, all right, guys. That's going to be it for me. I'm going to enjoy this here sparkling water. And I'm going to go downstairs and I'm going to warm up a bunch of leftovers. And after the game, I will be doing damage report tonight. I will see you guys then. Thank you very much for joining me. Those of you who are at the game, have fun. Cheer loud for me. I am going to try to make it to a game or 2 next month. So I'll get this one last comment here. Robin Stank ain't tall, but they're built. Yeah. And a lot of times that's all you need. being like short and stocky and having that low center of gravity, if you know what you're doing, you can really, really take advantage of that. All right, guys, I'm out of here. I will see y'all soon. I will see you after the game.